This happened in the movie.
Now. You're looking at now, sir. Everything that happens now is happening now.
What happened to then?
We passed then.
When?
Just now. We're at now.
Go back to then.
When?
Now.
Now?
Now.
I can't.
Why?
We missed it.
When?
Just now.
When will then be now?
Soon.
Hey there, Enthusiacs. Welcome to Spaceballs, the podcast, starring me, Judge Greg. Not starring, I'm the host, but you get it. Joining me today, I have Jeff, Bear and Fang, host of the Point Street podcast. Jeff, how are you doing?
Evening.
And of course, Jeff won't have the guts to face me unless he brings along the Dark Princess herself, Jen, author on The Attic. Jen, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Great. Now, okay, this isn't actually Spaceballs the podcast. This is Hero Talk, the Spaceballs podcast. But, I don't know, Spaceballs the podcast I think works for a temporary episode title.
It does.
It's branding.
Yeah. So today's film, in case you didn't know, is Spaceballs. That's the 1987 Mel Brooks classic in every sense of the word, starring Mel Brooks and a lot of other people who you've seen in 100 other things, but let's talk about that later. As always, we are a spoiler podcast, although if you haven't seen this one yet, I'm not really sure why you're listening to my podcast and not watching it. And also, it's a Mel Brooks film. I mean, how many spoilers could there possibly be that would ruin the story for you, I guess? I guess maybe there might be some Star Wars spoilers in here? I don't know. Whatever.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Alien spoiler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is an alien spoiler in there too. Anyway, let's just get on with it. I think I saw this movie. I want to say I saw this for the first time in 1988 on VHS, which was released before the movie was finished filming. And
yeah.
I quite like it, and I sometimes worry, because I go back and I find it just as funny every time I watch it, but I sometimes worry that if I hadn't had seen it at 8 and had an 8-year-old's humor, or whoever old I was on that, yeah. If I didn't have an 8-year-old's humor the first time I saw it, would I think this was as funny as it was? And I'm not entirely certain. But I did see it, and I do have that perspective, and it's funnier every single time I see it. Jeff, what about you?
I saw it when I was quite young as well. I think I probably saw it on home video like a year after it came out. Mm-hmm. And I'm certain that the fact that I was 11 or whatever I was, probably because there is a fair bit of infantile humor in the mix here. I'm certain that influenced why I enjoyed it so much. But over time, I came to enjoy it for additional reasons as well. It's actually a lot more clever than I think some people give it credit for. It's not just all penis jokes, although there are a lot of them.
There are a few. Yeah, there's a lot of phallic humor in this movie. That's a fact.
Yeah.
All right. So Jen, when was the first time you saw Spaceballs?
About a month ago.
Okay, so we have a very unique experience here. So you didn't, you didn't get to play the same way we did.
Yeah, not at all.
So
I was 1 when it came out.
Yeah,
so, and yeah, my parents. I don't know if I had ever even heard the title until Jeff started talking about it a while back with me. I just never came across it.
So what'd you think? Like seeing it for the first time as an adult, a movie that was steeped in 80s culture and humor. I don't know. What'd you think?
There were, mixed feelings on it. I think really you hit the nail on the head. Because I didn't grow up watching it as a kid, I think I kind of missed out on a lot of the adoration that you guys have for it. Yeah. There's certain things are hilarious. Certain scenes to me are just like, this is really stupid.
There's a couple of jokes.
Mixed on it. Yeah.
Every time I see the "What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? You chicken?" like. That is a line that if I were to see that for the first time as an adult, I'd be like, are you kidding me? But because I've seen this movie as a child and many, many times growing up, I see that line and it still makes me laugh. So it's something that you can get away with because you cemented yourself deep into my psyche at a young age, but you couldn't get away with now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's quite a few of those that if they had been in another movie under different circumstances in a different time, wouldn't have gone over as well.
The whole Pizza the Hut really grossed me out. Seriously. I just wanted to throw up. I'm sorry. It looked like vomit on TV.
Pizza is going to order out for you. Oh, boy. I loved pizza again because 8 years old. So I was like, oh, get it because of Pizza Hut and Jabba the Hutt, and I think that's the most clever thing ever. Whereas a movie now couldn't really get away with it. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this cast. I mean, these people were pulled in from all over the place. Mel Brooks, of course, played both President Scroob and Yogurt.
Mm-hmm.
So Yogurt obviously was kind of a riff on Yoda, and I don't think that was not obvious to anybody. President Scroob, I'm not entirely sure, other than the fact that it's Brooks kind of anagrammed out. I don't know if there was any significance to this character.
I mean, I guess he was a default somebody for Dark Helmet to report into, and they couldn't have an emperor because of whatever. So he was the next best thing.
I mean, Lucas was on board with this film. Like Mel Brooks even got permission from him to basically mimic Star Wars as closely as he did. There was the condition of that was that despite that scene, merchandising, like he actually wasn't allowed to merchandise with action figures because Lucas thought those would too closely resemble Star Wars action figures.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, Lucas was on board. LucasArts did all the post-production effects and everything. That's why it looks.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, you didn't. I was able to bring something to this. Yeah, he. That's why they had all the post production. They had Lucas's company do it, and that's why it looks so close to Star Wars because it's literally made by the same people who made Star Wars.
Wow. I mean, the special effects such that they are actually pretty good.
Yeah,
they're not bad for a film of the era.
Right. Yeah. So I like that. So we got a couple of legendary comedians in this in the form of John Candy playing Bartholomew, or I guess we'll just call him Barf. Another series of jokes that probably works much better when I'm younger than when I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can imagine maybe Jen not loving the Barf jokes as much.
I kind of cringed.
Yeah, they're a little campy, but still kind of make me laugh. It's still funny when you find out it's short for Bartholomew.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite lines towards the end of the film. That reveal.
Yeah. And so our other comedic legend is actor Rick Moranis playing Dark Helmet, our Darth Vader analog, with the fantastic helmet and the weird phallic tie. And I mean, it was his opening scene is probably among my favorite in the movie, where you just hear the deep breathing and all. And I mean, even as a kid, like I had never even really heard of this movie. I didn't know who was in it, so I had no idea when Dark Helmet's walking onto the bridge for the first time that I was about to see Rick Moranis. I had no idea who was under the helmet.
Yeah.
And he lifts it up, and it's nerdy Rick Moranis breathing hard, and like I can't breathe under this thing. It's just it still kind of makes me laugh to this day because I don't know, it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any of the scenes that incorporated inventive uses of the helmet, the mask, etc., like that, were favorites of mine.
One of my personal favorites is where he's making faces at President Scroob under the helmet.
Never wear that damn thing down in front of me.
Yeah, that was also, and wasn't there a pretty funny part towards the end where Lone Star is trying to cut through the helmet, but he can't, so he picks it up just to laugh at him, and then Lone Star punches him in the face.
Yeah.
All right. So Lone Star is Bill Pullman, a relatively unknown guy.
Yeah.
He had, I guess he'd been seen in a play by one of the producers, and that's how he got cast. But they were really, really trying to get like a big name to play Lone Star. Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise didn't take him up on the offer to play Lone Star.
Yeah.
And that was before like Candy and Moranis were on board. So like once he had his name recognition, then he could say like, well, then I can just grab anybody. And if you look at his IMDb, he only has 2 credits prior to Lone Star, and they're pretty low end stuff too. Like he was on Cagney and Lacey, so it was likely just somebody who showed up and like said some lines and walked out. And some show Ruthless People, or maybe a movie, I don't know, never even heard of it. But
I haven't either.
And as much as I liked him in this movie, when Independence Day came out and I found out that Lone Star was going to be the president, I was instantly skeptical.
I was excited because I'm like, wow, Lone Star's the president. Good for him.
And see, I have an opposite reaction when I went to watch Spaceballs. It was like, the president's going to be this, like, wanderer. This
Yeah, he's
hero,
this
little
roguish, kind of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker rolled into one.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really, really strange way of doing it. But, I mean, it worked, and they drove the Winnebago, which was our Millennium Falcon analog. What was the Winnebago called? Eagle 5, I think it was.
Something like that,
Yeah. So Princess Vespa, who is our Princess Leia analog, played by Daphne Zuniga.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
From Melrose Place?
From Melrose Place, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
We're just going to go with the Hero Talk tradition of I'm going to screw somebody's name up royally.
You have to.
And Daphne, this was your day. Yeah, I haven't seen her on anything since. I guess she's on One Tree Hill these days. I don't know if that show is still on or still a thing.
Oh, I don't think so. I've never seen it. I've only ever seen her in Melrose Place.
Yeah. She did reprise the role, actually, back in 2000, I think it was 2008-ish or so, on the Spaceballs, the animated series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, only 2 actors reprised their roles for Spaceballs, the animated series. One was Mel Brooks, and the other was Daphne Zuniga. So,
Wow.
did you guys ever see that? Like, Jen, probably not, because
No.
just saw this. But, Jeff, did you ever see that animated series?
No, I only found out that it existed like a couple of years ago, and I don't know where I would have found out about it anyway, but it mustn't have got like a very big push.
Yeah. I could have sworn at one point in time it was on either Netflix or Amazon Prime, because I saw it on there, and I watched the first episode, which is kind of a weird rehashing of the Spaceballs, the movie, and then I saw part of the second episode, and I just kind of turned it off. I was like, you know what? I don't want them to ruin something I love. And that's where it was going.
Yeah.
So I didn't see a whole ton of it. It was, like the first episode, the pilot, is basically sort of like taking the movie and retelling it again, except like changing some key parts of it so that, you know, it's not as final. Like, so it turns out Lone Star's not actually a prince. So, you know, like Lone Star is still the roguish guy and not a prince, and Vespa doesn't marry Prince Valium. That's another joke that just kind of falls flat these days, but it's still hilarious because when I saw the movie. But yeah, so she doesn't marry Prince Valium, played by Jim J. Bullock. There you go, Jim. Gave you a shout out.
Yeah.
But she just kind of stays single. And I think there wasn't that whole like the Schwartz was in you. He still has the Schwartz ring.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any other significant. There were. I mean, it was very, very truncated because it was basically took the whole movie and kind of squished it down to about a half hour. And then the second episode, they start riffing on like other different genres. Like if you read the synopsis, every episode of the animated series was meant to riff off of something else. So you know you got the pilot, which is Spaceballs. It's meant to riff off Star Wars, and then the first episode, the one I saw only part of, was Revenge of the Sith. And it was kind of a riff on the prequel trilogy, like Dark Helmet. He has this flashback to like his origin story when he was Panic-In Crybaby.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and so now you see why it didn't last very long. And I was like, you know what? No, that's fine. I don't need to see this. Don't. But if you look through like some of these, like the episode titles kind of give it away: Grand Theft Starship, Lord of the Onion Rings. Watch Your Jurassic Park, Harry Potter and the Gopher of Fire, Spaceballs of the Caribbean.
Oh my god.
The Scrubinator, Druidian Idol, and the Spider-Mog. So
wow. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page. It looks like they had to make this thing in Canada in order to get it done. I mean,
well,
wow.
I mean, most of these people were Canadian actors anyway, right? When I say most, I mean John Candy and Rick Moranis. I don't know why that counts as most. I don't know. Is Bill Pullman Canadian?
Huh? I'm not aware that he is, no. I mean...
Let's just go ahead and say he is.
Why not?
I don't know. Sure. He's no, actually, sorry. He was born in New York. So I looked it up just now, just to make sure I wasn't about to say something totally stupid. All right. So let's move on. So Dick Van Patten as King Roland, which is really weird when I watch it now because I hear King Roland and I immediately think of Sophia the First. probably a unique situation for me. I don't know of how many Sophia the First listeners I have out there. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Sophia the First, princess on Disney Junior? She wears the amulet of Amalur. Not Amalur. That's Kingdoms of Amalur. Amulet of... Yeah, I don't remember. I'm getting it confused, but gives her powers. Can only be destroyed by the fire of Everborn the Elder Dragon.
No, don't know that one.
No, yeah, sorry, because it's in Disney Junior. That's why you don't know it. Although, I gotta tell you something. I have seen Sophia and The Curse of Princess Ivy so many times, I could do a hero talk on it. Nobody would know anything what I was talking about, but I could do it.
Much as I like supporting the show, I don't know that I could be on your wingman for that one, exactly.
No, it's fine. It was that one had the crossover. The kind of the shtick of the Sophia the First is that her amulet kind of connects her to the other princesses, so all the other Disney princesses like show up every now and then to help her out in bad situations. Oh. And that was the one where Rapunzel came by to help her out.
Wow.
So anyway, we are way off topic, so let's bring it back in. It's enough Sophia the First. Yeah, so George Weiner played Colonel Sanders. I don't know why you would name him Colonel Sanders other than to abuse the Colonel Sanders you chicken joke.
I think that's the only reason, too.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know, did you see any other good reason for that other than...
No.
No. All right, good. So we've established that. Good.
Yeah,
so last member of the cast I really want to talk about, and then we'll just kind of let everyone else go, is Dot Matrix was voiced by Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
Who was just doing Joan Rivers' shtick, really.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious. And I guess a special shout out to Michael Winslow, who did play one of the radar techs who lost the bleeps and sweeps of the creeps.
And here's a really a quick but odd one. Brenda Strong was Dr. Schlotkin's nurse. People will recognize her voice from Desperate Housewives.
Desperate Housewives.
Yeah, she's the one that dies in the first episode, and she's like the narrator.
Oh, okay. See, I've never seen that show, so I have no idea. And I guess
too busy on Disney Junior.
Yeah, if it was on Disney Junior, I'd watch it, but it's not. So I'm only watching Doc McStuffins and Sophia the First, and this new show Miles from Tomorrowland, which is dumb, but I don't know. One other guy. I guess we got to mention this guy. I imagine we're going to talk about this scene at length at some point. But John Hurt did come back, and I can't say reprise his role. He was technically like the character's name is technically John Hurt, but he had another alien burst from his chest in this movie.
Not again.
Not again. That was. Now, here's the thing. I had not seen any of the Alien movies prior to seeing this.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
that
okay,
scene was totally
remember.
From you, then.
8.
Fair enough.
So, didn't actually... So, the reference kind of went over my head in terms of why is the alien jumping out of his butt. However, when he puts on the straw hat and the cane and he does the Michigan J. Frog out the... That's still funny no matter how old you are. I don't care.
It is.
I don't know. Like, you saw this as an adult. Did that kind of seem a little cheesy to you, where the alien just literally bursts out of his chest and breaks into song and dance?
I mean, it totally was cheesy, but it did kind of make me laugh because it was so... I don't know. To me, in a way, it was kind of unexpected.
Yeah. Because,
this movie is so silly, and I think ultimately it wasn't really that surprising that they would do something like that. The fact that scene was like so reminiscent, it brought me back to watching Alien, such a scary, serious, traumatic scene.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden it starts dancing. And it's just kind of like, all right.
There's so many levels to it. It really is like it's a parody, obviously, and then it just goes completely absurd. And then on top of that, they still managed to get in a very Mel Brooks sort of check please joke, thrown in at the end as a capper. Like, it's kind of a metaphor for the whole movie, really. That scene, just so weird. And probably, I told Jen that it's before she saw it that there's an aliens scene in it that's probably the most memorable scene in the whole movie, and I don't think it disappointed.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to miss that scene. All right, I said I was done, but I still got 2 more honorable mentions from the cast.
That's all right. Go ahead.
We got Tony Cox actually playing one of the Dinks.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned that on Hero Talks in the past, but wow, you talk about overqualified to play a dink.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Tony. We got nothing to say about you. Also, the voice of Pizza the Hut, can't believe we forgot this, Dom DeLuise.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's in just about every Mel Brooks movie, so he had... They had to get him in somewhere, right? Might as well be Pizza the Hut.
Yeah. And another Disney Junior connection is that Corey Burton, who is best known as voicing Captain Hook on Jake and the Neverland Pirates, also was a voice of a dink. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there you see. It always comes back to Disney Junior.
It sounds like it.
Yep. He also voices Professor Ludwig von Drake on the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. So there's that. All right. See? I bring good stuff to the table. All right. You guys are completely unimpressed with my knowledge of Disney Junior.
We're going to have to create a Hero Talk drinking game where every time Disney Junior gets mentioned, you have to take a shot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's really starting to become a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of other people who were uncredited, who are like pretty famous voice actors who were used for stuff. Rob Paulson immediately strikes me. Rob Paulson, probably best known for voicing Yakko Warner from the Animaniacs and Raphael from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Yeah. Also voices Toodles on the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse on Disney Junior. All right. You know what? That joke's never getting old, and I'm going to keep pulling it back in honor of Mel Brooks, who never met a joke he didn't like. So this movie, the story was nothing spectacular. I have to talk about this opening shot though. Now, I've checked it and I've taken out the stopwatch, and it's only like a minute and a half on Spaceball 1.
Yeah.
It feels like 15 minutes.
Oh,
It really does.
Yeah, they do a really good job with that.
Yeah. And it's apparently much shorter than Mel Brooks wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But so whoever convinced him to shorten it, good job, because I don't know if I can have handled any more. And especially, remember my attention span when I'm 8, and this thing is just like taking forever. And I'm not as well versed in Star Wars to appreciate the parody that's going on.
I have to respect the commitment to the joke, though. I mean, not many movies would drag that out. You know?
Well, I think that's one of them that you would actually appreciate more if you see it first when you're an adult. Because, like you said, if you're a little kid, it's like, why is this dragging on? This is boring. What's going on?
Yeah. However, a couple of things I did like. If you can read this, you don't need glasses.
Yes.
Because that was kind of funny.
That
and the "We Break for Nobody" bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was. I mean, but I guess the ship is meant to be huge. Now, I kind of keep looking for this, and I guess. Am I supposed to believe that President Scroob is on board the ship the entire movie?
No.
Like,
he's on Planet Spaceball in what looks like a weird Spaceball version of the Capitol building in the opening shots of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ends up on the ship at some point not long after.
I guess I missed the transition that put him on the ship. I don't know. Did I?
So did I.
Yeah. But I know he was drinking the Perry Air, which is another joke that went way over my head when I was 8, but now I feel like, oh, that's kind of clever. The canned air, the Perry Air. They're not all winners.
Can't win them all.
Yeah. I mean, so the movie, I mean, it's one gag after another, and so many of them, like, I still don't 100% get. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. Even after I had the Gone to Plaid joke explained to me, I still don't get it. Like, so the warp trails are usually lines, and they're going so fast that it's plaid. I still don't get it. It's still kind of silly. It still looks dumb. I don't know. Is that just me, or is that?
No, I agree.
I quite liked it. I thought it was clever. You could tell somebody just took a sort of a cliche from science fiction and decided to take it to its ridiculously absurd.
One would almost say to a ludicrous extreme.
Ludicrous extreme, yeah.
I'm just saying, if we were to take it to a ridiculous extreme, we would have been going ridiculous speed, which was an indication on the panel. Yeah. We were going ludicrous speed, so we had to cancel the three-wing circus and close the shopping mall. And I think that's just supposed to be part of the joke. That Spaceball 1 is so big that it can have a shopping mall and a three-ring circus and a zoo, apparently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, jamming the radar.
Oh my god.
Still funny. Still hilarious. I especially love that only one man would dare give me the raspberry. It's just funny. Like,
And
what a
that's-
ridiculous way to...
And that's a scene that when I was young was funny enough, but when I was older and somebody pointed out to me the subtle humor in that scene, that when the camera starts to pan in, Colonel Sanders actually sees it coming, reacts, and ducks out of the way.
Yeah, I had never noticed that until you had mentioned it to me a couple of weeks ago when we started planning this episode. And so I went back and looked, and yeah, it does. He sees the camera coming, and he gets out of the way of it.
Just take and just dives out of the way. So funny. I also really respect the fact that they used what would you call it? Traditional. When you don't. What's the opposite of using special effects in green screen?
Practical effects.
They used practical effects to show a thing of jam hitting the dish. Like, I don't know how they pulled that off, but very well done.
Yeah, no, that was kind of funny. And then it bleeps down, and Mike Winslow in his scene doing the thing that he does. I hope he gets residual checks from this.
I hope so too.
You don't see him in a whole lot anymore. Although he was on that new show Jack and Triumph with Jack McBrayer and Triumph the Insult Comic Dog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was in the first episode. That's the only one I actually saw, because that was the only one that was free on Google Play, and I was on a plane, so I took it. But so not really up in the world for him. Of course, he's most famous for the Police Academy movies, and he must still get checks from those. Even though I don't know, I don't even see them in syndication anymore. Like, nobody's showing those movies, and it's because of Steve Guttenberg. It would have to be.
I would assume so. Yeah. The Goot.
Yeah.
The Goot.
The Goot. All right. And
I'm sure he would appreciate that.
Another gag that I actually really, really did like is that everything on Spaceball 1 is named Mr.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Coffee, Mr. Radar. Later, when they're checking the tape, they go to Mr. Rental.
Yeah.
It was consistent, and I think...
I did not know what a Cuisinart was when I was a kid, and later on in life, I found that joke quite humorous.
Yeah. I also, one of these jokes that I thought was funny as a kid and has definitely not aged well is the whole Dark Helmet playing with his dolls when they're still pulling her in with the tractor beam somehow. Like, why would he not be on the bridge for that? Like, I know it's a comedy and it's silly and I'm supposed to believe that they've transitioned to the next scene, but why wouldn't you be on the bridge for that?
I actually just read that was like a last minute. According to the trivia section on IMDb, apparently that was like a last-minute decision by Brooks that day that they were filming that scene, and he told Moranis to like ad-lib the whole thing, and apparently he did.
Well, I mean, Rick Moranis is the kind of guy you let ad-lib. I've always thought it was a little sad that he was such a nerd in the Ghostbusters movies that they really couldn't just let loose with him. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, you let this guy off the leash, and he's just going to keep giving you comedy gold, and he's so, he's so pigeonholed by his character, so this felt pretty. I mean, I would love to know one of these days how much of this movie was actually just ad-libbed.
Well, I have another one for you.
Okay,
Apparently, John Candy ad-libbed the line, "Oh, that's gonna leave a mark," after standing up without undoing his seatbelt.
Yeah, and that makes me smile because that's a John Candy line. Like,
oh yeah,
like totally.
That's that could be right out of SCTV or something like that. Like,
yeah,
just perfect.
But yeah, I'm sure there's quite a bit. And
he's going down there.
Oh, that was really funny. I kind of like the whole sort of gag with the Princess Leia earmuffs on Vespa.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to cover this movie than go from gag to gag that I kind of like, because there's no plot to follow. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we can't really talk about what'd you think about this. There's nothing. It's a lot of nonsensical gags. Other than it's a lot of riffing on stuff, and sometimes I'm still catching things like the whole the Wizard of Oz when they're entering the yogurts thing with "Goodbye, folks. Let me know how it turns out." Like, that was.
Oh, was it? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that at all. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that was a whole Wizard of Oz thing that they were doing, which was kind of funny. I guess the whole yoga is yogurt thing, kind of a little lame, even though it led to that yogurt. I hate yogurt, even with strawberries. I love Dark Helmet in that like his desert outfit though.
Oh God, yes, yes, very, very, very well done.
Yeah.
And the another point when I was a kid. I mean, there's a reasonable amount, and I don't know whether we should warn our listeners. So there's a reasonable amount of profanity in the film.
There sure
which
is.
Which is odd considering that you and I were both kids when we saw this. But
yeah, and it's only
we
rated
weren't the only
PG
ones.
to be perfectly honest. But
it is. Yeah.
there was it's about as hard a PG movie as I think ever existed because there was a lot of profanity in this film.
Really, the only thing that I wasn't really capable of processing was the Virgin Alarm thing. That didn't sink in until some years later.
Yeah,
that was maybe one of my favorites.
Yeah. That and a few of the really deep references like that. And this is as obscure as it gets for this movie. There's a scene where I think Colonel Sanders calls out "Ready Metamorphosis." And Dark Helmet goes, "Ready Kafka?" Like, come on.
Holy cow!
Inside.
I did not get that reference until, I mean, honestly, it was not that long ago. I think a very, very recent viewing where I finally figured it out.
Like, it's almost surprising it made the cut. It was such a throwaway line.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy. Do our listeners know what that would be? I don't know. Is that... I know what it is. I know it's the metamorphosis, but like, do we need to explain that to people?
I don't know. I think it's. I think just say look it up and discover it for yourself, like we did. We're not going to do all the work for you.
People. No, it's a novella by Franz Kafka. That's where he got it from, and it was from like 1912. There
was a couple of things, and this happens with all sorts of movies that get DVD and Blu-ray releases, where I didn't notice things because of just detail. There's a lot of things in this movie that have Spaceballs, the whatever written on them in the background that you can see when you see a better version.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't President Scroob had like a bunch of Spaceballs, the stuff like in his bedroom there?
Yeah. And I forget for the life of me what book he was reading when he was pretending to be reading instead of cavorting with the two girls. And what a weird 80s reference. Chew your gum. Like they had they had twins in the film purely so they could make a gum joke.
Yeah, they did.
Like, what? The one I was getting at is I watched this on I watched bad VHS copies, probably pirated or recorded off the TV
which we don't condone here on Hero Talk.
Yes.
Oh no.
There were little takes and things that like that Colonel Sanders thing. If you get a bad version of this, that might be cut off on the screen. The one that I can't believe that I hadn't seen all these years was when Dark Helmet is pretending using the dark side of the Schwartz to be Roland.
I gotta stop you. He using the downside of the Schwartz.
Downside, sorry. Of the
Schwartz has an upside and a downside. I got the downside. Yeah.
Dick Van Patten is, of course, acting in the scene, and he gets that line like, "Would I lie?" And he literally looks off innocently. Just little things like that you don't see if you're watching a really bad copy. That I'm glad I got to see it in better detail all these years later.
Yeah. "Fooled you" is still one of my favorite lines. It's so ridiculous. And I mean, I guess I often praise a movie for not taking itself too seriously. And this movie, I have very little bad to say about it in terms of I enjoy everything, but it's one of these movies where sometimes the gags can get a little much, and I would have to wonder if like Jen, did you find that funny, or are you really?
Sorry, which one?
"Fooled you" right after the whole...
Oh yeah, no, that was definitely one of them where I just would have see, that's why I forgot it. It went over. It didn't go over my head, but it was just in one ear out the other.
Yeah.
Kind of cringe and move on.
Speaking of
a lot of them were like that for me.
Speaking of curious takes, this is something that really only comes up in that scene and then in the end of the movie in the climactic duel. What's with Rick Moranis and the "come on, man"?
Oh, come on, that's funny.
It is, but it just the whole movie he has this particular affectation, and then suddenly it's vaguely Jamaican, almost "come on, man." You're such a goof.
I wonder if that was from something.
I mean, if it was inscrutable.
I never picked up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I actually particularly kind of like the I'm gonna say lightsaber for lack of a better word fight with the
sure.
And I've seen this happen in a couple of Mel Brooks films, and it always kind of makes me laugh. Is where they kill somebody on set,
Yes.
Like they killed the sound guy.
Yeah.
Which is it always made me laugh. There was Men in Tights had another gag like that, where during the sword fight, they hooked a hot dog that one of the crew guys were eating.
Yeah.
And again, as 8 years old, I think it's funny because, when you're that young, breaking the fourth wall is, new and innovative.
Yeah.
And, now we're some 25 years later and everyone breaks the fourth wall. So.
Well, the bit where it's one of the best and briefest fourth wall breaking scenes ever. Just towards the beginning of the film, where he just turns to the audience and goes, "Everybody got that?"
Oh, everybody got that. That is probably one of my favorite parts of this movie. Is easily, if I had to pick one particular line that was my favorite, it's that one, because it's. They do that whole exposition, they explain the plan that they already know to each other just to set up what's going on in the movie, and then Dark Helmet stops and turns towards the audience and says, "Everybody got that?" We just said the story there. That was it. You gotta pay attention. That's still funny. I still love that because it plays off of a pet peeve of mine, as I really hate when movies, for the audience, have characters discuss with themselves stuff that they should probably already know. So when they turn and say, "This was for your benefit," I think that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be worth mentioning that there's this is obviously a Star Wars parody primarily, but you've got Star Trek gags, you've got Aliens gags, you've got, of course, Planet of the Apes.
Oh, the Planet! You know what? And I'm really proud of myself. At 8 years old, I got the Planet of the Apes reference. By the way, I was very proud of myself for knowing exactly what it was and why that was funny. I'm actually a little sad inside that the later Planet of the Apes movies undid the canon that it wasn't actually Earth, it was just Mighty Maid blew up and landed on their planet. I kind of like the idea that Charlton Heston is there and all, you blew it up. And no, they didn't. It's a completely different planet. It's total coincidence that those things fell down there. But it was pretty well established to be Earth later on, so. Unfortunately, Planet of the Apes had to go and screw it up.
Another thing worth mentioning, and this is just a Mel Brooks thing. If you have a Mel Brooks film, you're going to have a few of these. The Jewish gags.
Funny she doesn't look Jewish.
And the nose job.
The
nose job, yeah, that's a bit serious. It's only Mel Brooks can get away with that. I'm telling you, only Mel Brooks. But
yeah, that and just the Schwartz,
the Schwartz. Well, that was most people think that was probably a reference to his lawyer, whose name was Alan Schwartz. Now, why you use that, I don't know. You just want to say something funny about it. I do remember something though, that in the animated series, they called the downside the Schwartz side of the Schwartz. And that actually made me laugh enough that I kind of wish that had made it into the real one. Just how redundant is that? Because Schwartz is actually the word Schwartz is German for black.
It is, yeah.
So look,
it makes no sense whatsoever.
No, none at all. Yeah. But anyway, there you go. We're an educational show as well as discussing this movie. Now, the shift to Mighty Maid, I think even as a kid, I didn't think this was as funny as it maybe was supposed to be. It seemed to take forever, and I didn't care. It's I'll turn into a maid. All right, whatever. I don't know. Was that just me? Is this really just a classic scene that I'm just not accepting of?
It was just silly. I mean, they needed a really contrived way to get the air out, and I just picture I picture the writers probably just sitting around, gagging about what's the most ridiculous way that they could get the air out, and they just went with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even the suck to blow jokes didn't really land with me. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
No, it wasn't my favorite scene. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, it was. Now, listen, there was the funny thing leading up to the whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's kind of past an idiot puts on his luggage, which is actually not true because most people the luggage combination you don't get to pick. It's just that they give you a little slip of paper and says what it is. Not that you can even do it these days. For most modern people, they'd be like, "What? You can't lock your luggage?" TSA just rips that sucker right open. Yeah. I actually used to lock my luggage, and the TSA guys used to just say, "We'll cut it off," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine with that." I just want to give you. Oh yeah, they sure did. Yeah.
Oh wow.
But I just wanted to give them more work.
Out of spite.
Just out of spite, yeah. So I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least probably the line from this movie that I quote more than any other line would come from the scene where they actually, while filming Spaceballs the movie, got the tape of Spaceballs the movie and went to watch it.
That was one of my favorite parts, actually.
Yeah.
No, really, see, this is I'm fascinated, like living the movie almost through your eyes, Jen. It's like you actually got to be an adult and watching it. Like, so did that actually stuck and landed and was? Because I never know what's actually funny or what was just funny because I've seen this movie about 100 times since I was in single-digit ages. But so you like the scene?
I really liked it a lot. That was probably one of the scenes that made me laugh the most, just because I had never seen anything like that before in a movie, and it was so funny. Like, okay, well, let's watch it again, and then they're like looking at the camera and looking back, and just so funny.
When did this happen in the movie? Now. What you're seeing is now.
Yeah.
What about back then? I mean, we can't. Why? We missed it. When? Just now. When will then be now? Soon.
It's like Spaceballs' answer to Abbott and Costello, basically.
Yes.
I mean, it was. I know a lot of people where that's their favorite part of the movie, and it's very hard to argue with that because it is pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, don't go past this part.
In fact, never show
play
this part
again.
No, I will. That scene is pretty funny when like Dark Helmet is they're going ludicrous speed, as dumb as Going to Plaid is. When he's hanging and like he's just hanging on, and they hit the brake, and like we can't stop. We gotta slow down first. And then he just goes flying, and he's just like, let's take a break. Smoke if you got him. And so that's funny, and to see that again in fast motion is actually pretty hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I was a fan of being able to see that. Yeah. Another joke that I think I probably quote this line more often than not is I always drink coffee when I check the radar.
You know that.
You know that.
Yeah.
All right. So I mean, let's talk real quick. The Dinks, the Jawas.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else I really need to say about these guys? They're Jawas. I just felt like I needed to give them, given how many famous Dink voices and actors there were, I felt we needed to at least give them some lip service.
Yeah.
So that's something.
For somebody doing a parody of Star Wars, it must have been pretty damn well impossible not to, make use of little people actors and do a spin on that scene. Like it was, and it worked. It worked.
Because I mean, I looked through the cast of Dink. I'm half expecting to see Warwick Davis on this list somewhere. Because he shows up in all these movies somehow, but no. But a lot of weird voices that I didn't actually get to see. Rob Paulson, I should also point out, he was a Dink voice. He was also one of the Spaceballs with a comb. Just wanted
to... Was he?
He was one of the Spaceballs with a comb. He was, when they were combing the desert. One of my favorite gags. I think I referenced this in the Man of Steel hero talk. It was just kind of funny, where it's like, do you think we're being too literal? Like, no, we're following orders. He said, comb the desert, we're combing the desert. Still funny. I think the sight gag works because the combs were so huge. Like, and it's the idea that they had the huge combs. And of course the payoff line is pretty funny too.
I was just gonna say it, and then I thought I probably can't. I'll just get bleeped if I say it.
Particularly that scene was particularly effective as a kid because you only were given permission to hear cursing so often, and no one could argue with that, and no one could get you in trouble for laughing at it because it was just
Yeah.
Undeniably. Great line.
I agree. All right, so let's. I don't want to just sit here and talk about every joke in the movie, but I think we've done that for quite a bit. Let's talk. Do you know, like, there's been talk of a sequel, literally since the movie was in progress.
Yeah, the search for more money.
The search for more money. And there's been all kinds of stuff. In 2004, they kind of like tried to make a sequel that never actually happened. Then there's some people who now Spaceballs the animated series. It does continue the story after the movie, but like I said, it changes so much from it, and it was kind of cheesy enough that it wasn't really a continuation. It was just kind of the animated series really just felt like using the Spaceballs set to kind of make more jokes, but not really being a true sequel. And I read that at one point Rick Moranis, before he retired, actually wanted to make a sequel, and this is what he wanted to call it. It was he wanted to make a sequel called Spaceballs 3: The Search for Spaceballs 2. And you just hear the title and you're like, okay, I'm on board with that. That's actually pretty funny because I mean that feels like it. But that never happened. And now, as early as this last February, Brooks has said that he wants to make a sequel to Spaceballs to coincide with the next Star Wars movie. I mean, how do you do that? First of all, Rick Moranis has retired, and I mean, hard retired.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't come out just to do one role. He's done. I'm pretty sure this guy's got so many royalty checks coming to him from all the things he's done in the past. I don't think he's ever got to work again. I mean, he's in the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movies, and he's done a ton of stuff. So, I mean, you gotta respect that. And then, I mean, John Candy, Joan Rivers, and Dom DeLuise are no longer with us. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, who do you get to play a live action Barf?
I mean, Seth Rogen. I don't know, like, I just tried to think.
Not a bad choice.
I mean, I just tried to think of a sort of lovable, portly, sorry, Seth, comic who could, gruff enough and roly poly, for lack of a better word, enough to pull it off.
Yeah,
and I'll bet you I don't know him from a hole in the ground, but I'll bet you he, knowing how old he is in the area he grew up, he probably loves Spaceballs just as much as we do. So, and he probably loves Mel Brooks. Like,
he's got to love Mel. I mean, everyone loves Mel Brooks, but it's a hard thing to do. Like, unless you just, and this is sad, but you Barf is dead and he's got a new Mog.
Yeah,
but that seems a little dark.
Yeah,
for a Spaceballs movie.
Yeah.
Joan Rivers was just a voice. You could probably get somebody to do Joan Rivers' voice.
Yeah.
And Dom DeLuise did die, I guess, after all. I'm sorry, that was dark. Pizza the Hut died, who was voiced by Dom DeLuise. Yeah.
So you don't need to bring him back.
So he doesn't need to come back. He ate himself because he got locked in his limousine.
To be honest, I'm not.
Sorry.
And ate himself.
It is kind of funny. Okay, but to be perfectly honest, I do want to say one thing. He did look delicious.
He did.
Ew, no.
No, and Vinny thought he was delicious too. Vinny.
Duke, what's the difference? I'm actually, to get back on the topic at hand, I'm actually not on board with a sequel. To my knowledge, I could be wrong, but Brooks has never done a sequel to anything, including History of the World, which
was called Part 1.
Which had a Part 1. I just, when you're doing parody films, I think, you I mean, unless all you're going to do is parody every science fiction film that's come out since 1987.
Right, but I guess I see where you're coming from, but universe. At the same time, it's not like there aren't other Star Wars, sorry. There aren't other Star Wars movies out there to parody, like, I mean, it's...
There are, yeah.
When you make a parody on Star Wars and then they do, like, 100 other things, and I'm right now, I'm taking a real quick look to see if he's...
And really, he didn't mind the Well of Empire and and Jedi very much, really. I mean, it was focused mostly on A New Hope, at least conceptually. So you could do it. But I don't know. I think it was magic. I think it was of the time, and I just think it's gonna feel like trying too hard, to be honest. And granted, I don't think I've seen another Mel Brooks movie, with the exception of Men in Tights, since Spaceballs. So
you didn't see Dracula Dead and loving it?
No, I did. So I don't know whether he's still on his game or not. And as for the producers, that's not really my thing. So
all right.
I don't know. I respect the guy a lot. I just think it's. I don't really think there's much
Time
reason
passed.
to go back here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's fair. All right.
Can I just bring something up quickly?
Yeah. Why not? Go ahead.
You were talking about the Dinks earlier.
I was.
And in my browsing, while you guys were talking about a sequel, because I gotta be honest, I don't really care if they make one or not.
Gotcha. Putting you down for Spaceballs 2 Hero Talk right now.
One of them was named Ed Gale, so I looked at his IMDb because I thought the name sounded familiar, and he was the live-action stunt double to Chucky in Child's Play.
Oh.
Yeah, obviously, I was a huge horror fan. I thought that was really interesting. I didn't know that. So, there's a little did you know.
Now, isn't, like, Chucky was a little doll, right? Like, wouldn't he be much, much bigger than a little doll? Well,
they actually built a set of certain scenes, like the living room, for example, when he is lit on fire. Mm-hmm. And they scaled everything, up to make him look smaller.
Okay.
So
Wait,
they
so they
actually
set this
built,
guy on
like, a
fire?
bigger couch, and yeah, there was like seriously, there was like a live action, because there's certain times where in the movie Chucky's on fire and he's running around the living room. They couldn't do that with a fake animatronic or something. They actually got a little
they
person.
set Ed
and put him
Gale
in
on fire. Is what you're telling
Poor
me.
guy. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You gotta do it for the movies.
Oh, all right then.
But he's okay.
Oh, if you say he's okay, then fine. He's okay. Incidentally, I just looked up Ed Gale. Like, he's been in a ton of stuff that I've seen.
Yeah.
He was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Howard the Duck, which I have
Yeah,
also
he
never
was-
seen.
Oh,
He
wow.
was in Howard the Duck, yeah.
Yeah.
See, he was in Weird Science, the TV series that was on USA, which I was actually a fan of that one. So, see, he was on Family Matters when Family Matters got really weird, and there were like those like evil puppets running around. He played one of the evil. I think it was the Bad Carl, called Carl's Bad. Get it?
God,
Do you
I
get
don't
it?
remember that.
Do you guys get it? Carl's Bad.
Unfortunately, we do get it.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. He was on My Name Is Earl. He was the little prisoner when they were in the jail. That's actually pretty funny.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
And Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Melissa Joan Hart vehicle. So I'm really starting to wonder like how much hidden talent was in the Dinks
I know.
right now. 'Cause, like we have Tony Cox so far. The voices have been people who've been all over the place. I'm looking up Arturo Gill, who was one of the Dinks, to see if he was if he's been in anything else. He probably was an Ewok or something. I don't know.
It
All
is
right.
really interesting though. Like I never would have thought Chucky would have been in Spaceballs, but you never know.
There you go.
Yep.
So, all right. I think now we're safely at the point in time on the show where we can talk about what our favorite parts of the movie were. And Jen, since I am incredibly curious, I need to start with you. What
Okay.
was your favorite part of Spaceballs?
I'm kind of
That's not promising. No, the deep sigh is not. Like, oh.
World
No,
weary.
it's it's not a like woe is me sigh. It's a how do I decide, because I really loved that scene where they were playing back the movie. But I think while I was watching it, my favorite scene was the alien.
The alien
Scene.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like that
It's
should
just-
probably be your favorite scene. Just
As much as I
Yeah.
love those movies, like he was telling me, like, oh, the diner, there's a scene you're really gonna like in this. The second I saw them sitting around, I'm like, okay, I know exactly where this is going, and I am so on board, and I just loved it. It was so good,
all right.
and I
So,
love that they got him back. It would have been very different if it wasn't him.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
I think the funny thing about it though is having seen this movie so many times, then when you go see the Aliens movies and I see him and I'm like, wait a minute, that's the guy. So then I knew
Yeah.
his fate. I knew what was going to happen to him. Like, there's no way that you're not going to have an alien burst from your chest in this movie too. You were in the movie.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Before I go to Jeff, real quick, another famous Dink voice that didn't get credited, but is a famous person, Phil Hartman.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Yes. Out of all the people, I brought up Rob Paulson before Phil Hartman. I feel like that's wrong in some way. All right. So Jeff, Spaceballs. What was your favorite part of this movie?
Well, look, I have a lot of favorite parts, and we've covered some of those. So I'll mention the one that like I love, and I seem to be the only one that does, and I get weird looks when I bring it up, even people who agree with me. There's a scene when they capture the princess's empty Mercedes, where there's a whole room full of Spaceball guards standing there. Lord Helmet walks in, and one of the guards is about to go down and open up the ship and take care of business, and Lord Helmet stops him and says, "No, I want to do this personally." And the guard does this sort of vaguely Nazi-esque sort of turn with his gun and says, "Jawohl, Lord Helmet," with like a German accent. And which wouldn't be that funny on his own, but Dark Helmet just stops and turns and looks like, and then just looks ahead and goes on with it. Like that take was just, I don't know what it was about the timing of that. It was just so random and out of place. And the rest of that scene is awesome as well, right down to everyone like covering their their junk when he gets angry. And that speech is just like legendary. But apart from that, I don't know why it gets me so hard every time. I think it has a lot to do with the actor whose name we've all seen him in tons of stuff. But when they capture the stunt doubles and the officer is giving this ridiculously pompous speech,
Yeah.
and Just love that scene, and I love watching the scene beforehand and spotting the stunt doubles.
Yeah, like once you know it's coming, then you look, you're like, oh, are these really the stunt doubles? And
right down to the guy, the dude with the dress and the cigar.
Yeah.
Just so perfect.
All right, so I guess my favorite scene, and it's unfortunate because we haven't talked about a lot of scenes because we don't have time. You cannot do a hero talk where you just go from joke to joke through the whole movie. But we've already talked about it, and so I kind of feel bad that I'm not bringing anything new. But when they pull out the Spaceballs, the tape, and they actually like are on like when will then be now, and they're right there looking at each other. That is still my favorite part. That is the number one best part of the entire movie. And even if I had to pick my second favorite, the honorable mention would have to be To the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
because
it's
do funny.
I do like the guy thumbing through the Mel Brooks back catalog to get the tape too. That
was
a nice little touch.
Yeah, nice touch. All right,
Mr. Rental.
Mr. Rental. I am very ashamed of how long it actually took me to notice Mr. Rental too. For how many times I've seen the movie and seen that scene, like I want to say I noticed Mr. Rental for the first time like last year. So that's not my shining moment, but still funny, and I still like it. All right, so now we got to give this movie a score, and so I'm gonna save Jen for after Jeff. I'm still gonna go last. It's my show. Jeff, what would you score Spaceballs the movie?
Oh, wow. Let's see here. I'll put myself back in the mindset of when I was younger. I will.
You did know this was coming, right? We do this at the end of every single one of these.
I did. I honestly, I was thinking about the score, and then I forgot to actually come up with a numeric. That's the thing that was. I will give this 4.5 ineffective Vulcan neck pinches out of 5.
That was a funny gag. I still wonder if that one will fall flat. Jen, you need to help me out. Does that one fall flat? The Vulcan neck pinch gag? Is that something that's only funny when I'm 8?
I thought it was pretty funny. Like not ha-ha funny, a slight smile funny.
All right, fair enough. So Jen,
Sorry.
what would you score Spaceballs the movie?
I'm gonna give it 2 dinks out of 5.
Wow, we are gonna get hate mail. 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5.
All right.
Sorry.
So here's how I would score Spaceballs the movie. The way Spaceballs the movie runs things, 10,000 years of fresh air would last 15,000 years. That's how good I rate this movie. Trying to make my ratings a little more nonsensical these days, just because they don't mean anything. Plus, I hate number ratings. I don't know if I've said that enough times. I think they're dumb. They're for people who don't care enough to actually like listen or read the review or whatever. So I don't like number ratings.
Actually, can I change my score to 4.5 fathers, brothers, nephews, cousins, former roommates out of 5? That actually.
So what does that make us then?
Absolutely nothing, apparently.
Yeah. All right. You know what? Then I'm going to change my score too. Why not? We're all changing our scores now, Jeff. I'm going to give Spaceballs the movie Eagle 4 out of Eagle 5.
Can I make a slight change on mine?
Sure, Jen. Why not? What would you change your score to?
How about 2 non-burning dinks out of 5? Because I feel bad that I so callously talked about him being lit on fire.
Wow.
You did very callously.
I did.
He was like, "Well,
sorry,
you couldn't
Mr.
set the
Ed.
doll on fire. Like, it's a human being. I would think you'd more want to set the doll on fire." All right. So there we go. That was Spaceballs. And hey, that was Hero Talk. So I want to thank you guys for joining me again, Jeff and Jen. Jen, I'm always pleased to expand your repertoire of movies that you've seen for the show.
You definitely helped on that. Thank you.
Yep, and Jeff, you probably didn't need another excuse to watch Spaceballs again, but there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to my listeners, I just want to thank you for listening on behalf of my panel. For more podcasts, Let's Plays, articles, videos, reviews, visit Enthusiacs.com. You can also check us out on Twitter at Enthusiacs. You can also check us out on Facebook. That's right. We are now on Facebook. That is at Enthusiacs. YouTube, we are Enthusiacs on YouTube. And as always, we'll see you right back here for the next Hero Talk. Hey Hey there, Enthusiacs. Welcome to Spaceballs, the podcast, starring me, Judge Greg. Joining me today, I got Jeff Baron Fang. Should I say your last name? Should I go back? You do that?
I don't remember whether we do or not.
Huh. Let's start that over again.